Scott Walker was in the other early primary state of South Carolina. He's doing 2 full days of events in South Carolina today and tomorrow, which is handy for him politically, because what's going on for him at home right now in Wisconsin is a slew of terrible headlines. First of all, there's the matter of former staffers going to prison. One of the scandals that trails behind Scott Walker as he makes this run for the presidency is this sprawling investigation into people who were working for him as public employees, also doing Scott Walker campaign business while they were working on the public dime. That investigation into Scott Walker's political past has resulted in 6 staffers and associates of Scott Walker being convicted, including his deputy chief of staff from when he ran the county government in Milwaukee. She has been sentenced to 6 months in prison for this case, for illegally working for Scott Walker on the taxpayer's dime. Today in Wisconsin, the state Supreme Court rejected her last appeal, which means she is effectively being told to report to prison to start serving her 6 months, unless she can convince the only other court in the land that still has jurisdiction to intervene. And so Scott Walker's former deputy chief of staff is either going to prison very soon, or she's going to take her case all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So that was one set of headlines for Scott Walker at home today. Not good news. The other set of headlines for him at home today was about the terrible jobs record that he is leaving behind in Wisconsin. Scott Walker, like most presidential candidates, is trying to run on his economic record. He's trying to run as a jobs candidate. Before today, the problem for him with that was his current ranking in terms of job creation as governor of Wisconsin. Wisconsin ranked 31st in the nation out of 50 in terms of jobs created heading into today. Today, the blaring headline in Wisconsin is that Wisconsin has now dropped in job creation. They had been 31st in the nation. Now they are 38th in the nation, tied for last place among similar states in the Midwest. And the national comparison is particularly stark. In the last 12 months, the national job creation rate has been double the creation rate has been in Wisconsin. So under Scott Walker, Wisconsin is doing badly compared to the rest of the country. Wisconsin is even doing badly compared to its similar states in its neighborhood of the country. And so there was Scott Walker today campaigning for president in South Carolina, talking to conservative groups in South Carolina, trying to make a pitch for his economic record as Wisconsin's governor. When you have a bad economic record and you're trying to run on that record, you have to sort of get very specific in order to find something to brag about. The very specific pitch Scott Walker is making is that the thing he did in Wisconsin, which would make him a good president, the thing he did in Wisconsin, which shows you what he could do for the country, is that in Wisconsin, he destroyed union rights. That's his pitch for running for president, that he destroyed union rights in Wisconsin. And he did. In 2011, Scott Walker became nationally famous when he destroyed union rights for public employees in the state that gave birth to union rights in this country. That gave Scott Walker a national profile, in part because hundreds of thousands of people in Wisconsin protested against what he was doing. Those protests against what Scott Walker did were the largest demonstrations in the history of the state of Wisconsin. Now, this year, as he's running for president, Scott Walker and the Republican legislature in Wisconsin have basically finished the job. What they took apart in 2011 were union rights for public employees. What they just took away this year were union rights for everybody else in Wisconsin. And that destruction of union rights is really the central case that Scott Walker is making for why he should be president. That is the story he most wants you to know about him as he runs for national office. It's so central to his campaign for the presidency, he kind of tries to attach it to everything. Everything. Even things he really should not try to attach it to.
Should you become commander-in-chief, how would you deal with threats such as ISIS?
Well, you know, the interesting thing, sometimes people don't understand that as a governor, I actually get a threat assessment from the FBI and from my adjutant general. And without divulging confidential information, I would tell you for years I've been concerned about that threat, not just abroad, but here in American soil. I want a commander-in-chief who will do everything in their power to ensure that the threat from radical Islamic terrorists do not wash up on American soil. We will have someone who leads and ultimately will send a message not only that we will protect American soil, but do not take this upon freedom-loving people anywhere else in the world. We need a leader with that kind of confidence. If I can take on 100,000 protesters, I can do the same across the world.
protester. Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin claiming at CPAC recently that he has the experience and the know-how to fight ISIS because look what he did to those residents of Wisconsin and their terrible, blood-curdling freedom of speech.
You're not actually comparing ISIS terrorists to the protesters in Wisconsin, right? That's not you're not trying to make that comparison in either direction.
No, not
the protesters are equivalent to terrorists, or that the terrorists are equivalent to protesters.
Not by a landmine, by a landslide out there difference. Not Grand Canyon-sized difference.
Not by a landmine, or by a landslide, or by a Grand Canyon.